Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio for the second time today, I believe. Welcome to the show. So, Kaldheim spoiler season is in, let's say, half swing. If you haven't seen the schedule yet for Kaldheim spoilers, essentially we're going to get some spoilers yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Then again on the 24th, and then actual spoiler season starts off on January 7th. So yeah, we're kind of in the middle of the initial pre-spoilers kind of things. But yeah, we've already seen some exciting cards. Already have gone, I believe, gone over 2 spoilers so far. So go ahead and check those two out. One was a saga, and one is basically kind of like a birthing pod. But yeah, now we finally have our very first commander spoiler, or creature that is a commander, with Magda, Brazen Outlaw. And again, I want to apologize for any time I misspeak or, say something incorrect during this episode. This is a quick take. Basically, I'm just turning on the camera and giving you my quick thoughts on the card, how I'd build around it, and so on and so forth. So, Magda Brazen Outlaw is a 2/1 Dwarf Berserker that costs 1 and a red. She has other dwarves you control get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token, sacrifice 5 treasures, search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. There is a lot going on with Magda, and a lot that is really exciting. First off, you can definitely go Dwarf Tribal. You're probably going to have to go some sort of Dwarf Tribal in order to make this work. Obviously, you kind of get a benefit for combat with that +1/+0. But then the more important part is whenever you have a dwarf, whenever a dwarf becomes tapped, you create a treasure token. So obviously, you can do that through combat. When you swing, you make a treasure token. That's huge. I mean, you're getting basically free temporary mana with those treasures. But there's other ways to tap dwarves as well, or just creatures in general, and we'll talk about those here in a bit. Then the big part, though, sacrifice 5 treasures, search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put it right onto the battlefield. Yeah, just tutoring up whatever artifact or dragon that you want, no matter what the converted mana cost is. That's huge. That's game ending in some circumstances. So, yeah, I mean, I would definitely work around, building in a lot of dwarfs that are very low to the ground. Ways to tap those dwarves, get a lot of treasures out, and then, start sacrificing those to get out some key artifacts and key dragons to finish out the game. So, yeah, that would be my game plan. Let's go through some cards to consider for a deck like this. Bloodfire Dwarf, any kind of dwarf essentially that costs 1 is definitely one that you're going to want to consider for this kind of a deck. Again, turn 1, you get this down. Turn 2, you get Magda down. Turn 3, you can already just, swing with 2 of them and make 2 free mana essentially with those treasures. So yeah, you basically want to stay very low to the ground. You can also obviously branch off into some changelings as well, because those are also technically dwarves. So like Universal Automaton, a 1-mana changeling, basically just gets the job done for you right there. You can, of course, keep, adding in more dwarves. You're going to need a decent amount. So you're probably going to branch into maybe 2, potentially 3-mana dwarves, and we'll get to some of those here in a second. 7 dwarves is definitely something that can be very effective in this deck. You can have up to 7 of them, and the more 7 dwarves that you have in play, the bigger each of them get. Quite flavorful and fun. But yeah, you want to kind of keep your mana curve very low, I believe, with the dwarves, but there are some that you probably want to kind of have on that higher end, and again, 3 or 4 mana is kind of not really that high of an end, but you really want to stay low to the ground with this kind of deck, I believe. Torbranth and a red fel. Cost 4 mana. It says if a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent opponent controls, it deals that much damage +2 instead. This just makes all your red things more deadly. So yeah, that's definitely a good inclusion. Dwarven Blood Boiler, though, might be an even better inclusion. A 2/2 that allows you to tap and untap dwarf you control, and target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So yeah, this can pump creatures, but more importantly, this lets you tap your dwarves essentially outside of having to swing with them in combat. So you can just basically tap your dwarves whenever you want to make those treasures now, and you do get that benefit of pumping up a creature while you do that. Now, you obviously need other ways to tap your dwarves other than just combat and this Blood Boiler. So let's talk about vehicles. Vehicles are definitely something that could work really well in this deck. They're temporarily creatures once they're crewed, but they are kind of a protected creature because, again, they turn back into just an artifact at the end of the turn. So Smuggler's Copter, Cultivator's Caravan, Mizium Tank are all low-to-the-ground vehicles that you can get out there. They don't have really high crew costs, so you can just, crew them up with a couple of dwarves. You can even kind of over-crew a vehicle, I guess, as well, with more dwarves than you need. And then you can get some benefits out of them as well. Smuggler's Copter, whenever it attacks, you draw a card. If you do, discard a card, so you're looting. Cultivator's Caravan can tap for mana for you. And Mizium Tank, it can get bigger when you it can get bigger whenever you cast non-creature spells. But again, the important part is that all these are pretty low to the ground. I think that you want to make this deck into a very, quick, cast a lot of things quickly, that, you get your kind of plan out there. And then you can really kind of finish out the game with those tutoring effects by, again, sacrificing 5 treasures to get either an artifact or a dragon. Let's talk about some artifacts that can be, other outside of vehicles, that can be really good in this deck. Something like a Springleaf Drum can come in handy. Tap it to untap an untapped creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. So this is kind of like a mana rock-ish that utilizes one of your creatures. And again, whenever you're tapping your dwarf, you get a treasure as well. So it's kind of like 2 mana, essentially. 1,000-year elixir, artifacts like these that can untap your creatures can be huge as well. Pay 1 untap target creature. Essentially, getting that treasure pays for itself. You're kind of utilizing, your temporary mana, your current mana to make temporary mana for the future, which can be huge. Cryptic Gateway can just help you tap 2 untapped creatures you control to put a creature card from your hand that shares a creature type with them into play. So basically, yeah, you can, tap 2 of your dwarves to get another in play. Or if you've got some dragons in play already and you've got a big one in your hand that you don't want to waste a lot of mana to cast, you can tap 2 of those, and so on and so forth. Now we want to talk about kind of ways to untap your dwarves, though, because being able to get kind of these effects or getting more treasures more than once in a turn can be huge. So again, if you've got 5 dwarves in play, that's great. If you can tap them all, that's 5 treasures. But if you can tap them twice, that's 10, and so on and so forth. So yeah, utilizing things like Mob Rule, Aggravated Assault, and Morog can be huge. Mob Rule is one. And again, there are other ones like Insurrection, but basically you can choose gain control of all creatures with power 3 or less until end of turn. Untap those creatures that gain haste until end of turn. Most of your dwarves, if not all of your dwarves, are essentially going to be smaller than 3. So yeah, you're going to be basically just paying 6 mana to gain control of, your opponent's creatures as well that have power 3 or less. And you're going to be untapping your own creatures too. So you get, to swing with your opponent's creatures, which is great, but you also just, get to basically untap and retap your dwarves. And again, if you've got more than 6 dwarves in play, you're basically going to be netting mana from this. And again, there are even times that you're not going to be netting mana from it. You're going to be utilizing your current mana to make temporary mana that you can utilize in the future, or utilize again to just sacrifice and tutor. Aggravated Assault is probably the best, probably going to be the golden pig of this deck if you can afford it. I'm not sure exactly what the price of it is at this point. But basically, it's an enchantment that has pay 3 red, untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there's additional combat phase, fall additional main phase. Place ability only time you could play a sorcery. Basically, this is, hey, do you have 6 dwarves in play? If so, you've got infinite mana. That's essentially what this is. I mean, obviously, you need ways to tap those dwarves, but if you've got, say, 6 dwarves and a vehicle, you tap all those dwarves to crew that vehicle. You sacrifice 5 of those treasures, you put that in Aggravated Assault, you untap your creatures, you tap it again, so on and so forth. You basically net 1 treasure each time, and congratulations, you've got infinite treasures. You can actually just win through combat as well if you wanted to. Let's say even if you only had 5 dwarves, if you've got, that vehicle to attack with and it's got some evasion like a Smuggler's Copter, congratulations, you win there as well. A lesser kind of version of this, but still very powerful, is like Morog, Fury of Hakum. Basically gives you an extra combat with landfall. So yeah, you can basically, even just getting, again, 1 extra combat, 1 extra untap with your creatures can be huge for a deck like this. Let's talk about some heavy hitters, though, kind of the finishers that you want to tutor up for with your artifacts or dragons. Let's start with the artifacts with Blightsteel Colossus. That's probably the most obvious one if you've got the budget for it. Blightsteel Colossus, an 11/11, trample, infect, indestructible. Yeah, that's going to be pretty brutal, and can definitely finish off your opponents pretty quickly, and getting that out early can be very deadly. A Possessed Portal, if you like stacks effects, this is the one for you. Basically, it says if a player would draw a card, the player skips that draw instead. At the end of each turn, each player sacrifices a permanent unless they discard a card from their hand. Yeah, you're going to be able to, again, with this kind of a deck, create a bunch of permanents. Again, anytime you're tapping those dwarves, you're making treasures. You can utilize those treasures to sacrifice, whereas your opponents are going to have to sacrifice much more valuable things than you, so you can kind of outlast them with a card like this. When it comes to dragons, some that you might want to consider, there's plenty of great red dragons out there. Lathless, Scourge of Valkus, and Hellkite Tyrant. Lathless says whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 5/5 dragon with flying. So yeah, you get Lathless out first, then you get some other dragons, and you're getting even more dragons out. Scourge of Valkus has whenever it or another dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to our creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. Again, the more dragons that you get out, and the more ETBs that you get with your dragons, the bigger of a ping that you get. And then Hellkite Tyrant is just, hey, you're playing an artifact deck already. Let's just deal some combat damage to players, steal all their artifacts, and then if we've got 20 or more during our upkeep, we win. So yeah, there's definitely some dragons that work really well with artifacts, work well with treasures, so on and so forth. But yeah, I really like the design of Magda. Seems like a very interesting deck. Again, you're going to be utilizing a couple different things, trying to tap and untap your dwarves, trying to make treasure tokens, and then trying to sacrifice those treasures to go get an artifact or a dragon. It's very flavorful, it's very powerful, and yeah, I just really like the design of this commander. But yeah, now it's my turn to hear from you, so in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on Magda are. What direction would you take her? So yeah, let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.